Going to start there you go. All right. And I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to introduce and then we move on. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to Whispers and Bricks. My name is Ari Schonbrun. I'm your host. We have with us today, Jake Ballentine. I met Jake over the internet a long while ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And I've been following him ever since. And this guy is really, really amazing. Let me just give you a little bit of history about Jake. Jake is the founder of the Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network, a thriving community of over 11,000 aspiring and experienced message-driven entrepreneurs from all over the globe. He's an award-winning motivational speaker and success coach who has presented over 500 live events and is the host of the Mountaintop Motivation Podcast. His message to the world is that you can reach the mountaintop of your life if you are willing to dream and put one foot in front of the other. When he is not working, he enjoys having fun outdoors, spending time with his wife, Caitlin, and 4-year-old son, Jacob. Please help me welcome Jake Ballentine. Jake, how are you?
I am fantastic. Life is good, Ari.
That's great. Like I said, I've been following you ever since, I touched base with you about that Benji Bruce program that he had. And I was trying to figure out what it was all about. I saw that you had attended the program. So I wanted to get your take on it. You gave me some really, really good advice. And then, you know what? You were like off to the races. It was unreal. I was watching you, and I'm going, man, is this guy flying or what? It was amazing. Really was.
Well, thank you. Thank you to say that.
Yeah. And I mean it, I'm not just saying it. Okay.
Well, I appreciate it.
Now, as you know, the name of the podcast is Whispers and Bricks. Now, the whispers are those voices telling us what the right thing to do is, and they represent the good in life. The bricks represent the bad things that we go through in life. And we know there are so many ups and downs in life and many bumps in the road, and those are the bricks that are hitting us that are kind of, putting us back to reality or making us, go through a possibly life-changing experience. So, but my first question for you is, have you always been a coach, or did you do something else beforehand and then become a coach? And if that is the case, what was the impetus in your decision to become a coach?
Well, so I've been both a professional speaker and coach now for a little over 10 years. Before that, I think I've always been a coach. I just wasn't paid for it. I think most people who go into coaching do it because it's something that's natural to them. It's something that they just do. They're just helpers. That's what they're naturally inclined to do. In fact, if someone isn't naturally inclined to helping people, if they're not the person who is figuring out how they can help this person and that person just in their personal life, coaching probably isn't the job for you. It probably isn't the career for you. So it's something I've always enjoyed, always loved. But I got my start pretty early. I never had like a corporate job or anything like that. I really went from college right into the beginning of my career was just full-time speaking. I didn't start coaching until about 5 years ago. That's when the coaching aspect went in. But the first 5 years was full-time as a keynote speaker. And then the next 5 years has been more focused on the coaching side of things. But kind of in the interim, my first entrepreneurial pursuit. So I'm also a musician. I don't call myself a professional musician anymore. But I was at a time. I now just play as a hobby and something for fun. But while I was going to college, and in fact, I took a extended break from college and I was playing music, played acoustic guitar, played a bunch of other things as well. But I was playing clubs, bars, venues, weddings, all that kind of stuff all around the Western United States. And that was a business that I built. And the truth is I really wanted to build that. I had this passion for it. And my whole passion was around using this tool of music to promote a positive message. That was the whole goal around it. But I knew that I needed to learn business because I looked at my other friends who were not successful at music. Even though they were great musicians, they weren't successful at the business side of it. So I started taking business courses. I started taking online marketing courses, and I started studying personal development because I knew that I could not be held back by the rejection that was going to come. So I dug in deep and started listening to Tony Robbins, started listening to Jack Canfield, read read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, got
Oh
into all
yeah.
sorts of things like that. And then what I found was I discovered this brand new love, this brand new passion. I still love music. I will always love music. But in this pursuit, it did help me with my music career. It helped me, and I was able to book gigs all over. I was playing full time. But after a while, I developed this love for personal development, for really making a difference. And from the beginning, it was making a difference with music. So then I decided, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna take all these things that I'm learning from all these different audio programs and video programs and live events that I'm attending. I'm gonna take those things and I'm gonna mix them with music. And I created a program where I went to high schools, middle schools, and youth leadership conferences all over the United States, combining music and a positive message, personal development. And that's how the career started.
Wow. I never would have guessed that. That's amazing. That really is amazing. So basically, it seems like on the surface, so far you've had a great life and a great career. You followed your passion in music. You went into coaching because you're one of those people that likes to help people. And by the way, I agree with you 100% wholeheartedly that you've got to want to help people. All right. You got to have that natural, inclination to help people in order to go into this business, because otherwise it's never going to happen. People can see right through phonies, basically.
Yep.
They can, as much
Yep.
as you like to think they can't, they can. So, but every so often, life throws us a curveball. All right. Life hits us with a brick. Now, my biggest brick was 9/11, and the whispers helped me with my miraculous escape, but I went through that brick and it did totally change my life. So what my listeners want to know is, what were some of the struggles or even failures, if any, some of the bricks that you got hit with when you were starting out in your career and throughout your career or your personal life, either one?
Yeah. Hold on one sec.
Sure. Grab a
I'll
drink.
say for me, um, gosh, there's lots of bricks. I mean, that's just a part of life. And I think sometimes people say, like, Jake, how do you stay so positive? And it's because I work on it. I work on staying positive. This sign behind me says focus on the good. And that's a concept that not only I teach, but I live. It's a choice to focus on the good and not just focus on all the problems, because there's always problems. I can think about some major challenges in my life, a couple that come to mind. A couple years ago, we had a death in the family, which was one of my biggest mentors in my life, who was my wife's dad. He passed away of cancer. He had about 6 weeks between diagnosis to funeral. I mean, it was a
Oh my
very, very
God.
fast thing. He was a very healthy man, very young. My wife is well, she's the second oldest in her family, but so her parents were pretty young when they had her. So he was only 57 years old, just
Oh,
57, and is a great businessman. And he had been a huge mentor in my life. That was extremely challenging. Um, Another big challenge was, um, we have one child, and we've
Jacob.
been married for, yes, and we've been married for 12 years. That was not our plan. Our plan was to have children right away, right at the beginning. And we went through 7 years of the doctors saying you will never be able to have, like, nothing. Like, we've tried everything. Like, it is hard for me to even fathom how much money we have spent in that process and trying everything that you could think of. And we're so blessed that one thing ended up working. And then at the same time, that same thing hasn't been working. That same treatment hasn't been working since then. And we planned. We both come from big families. Our plan was to have
A
four or
big,
five, 4 or 5 kids. That was kind of like, and that was, my wife comes from 8, but that we
oh,
weren't going
wow.
there. But we were planning on like 4 or 5 kids. And you know what? It's just not in the cards. It's just not in the cards. Now, one day we may adopt. One day, who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. But what I've learned through this process is you can either be bitter and upset about life not turning out the way you want it to turn out, or you can make a decision to say, you know what? I'm just going to appreciate the way that life is. And so many of us miss out on all the good in life. We miss out in what is because we're mourning what isn't. And I think if we just let go and focus on the good in life and focus on what we have instead of what we don't, our life is completely different. And so that I like talking about that idea of the bricks. But for me, every brick that I've had, at the end of the day, I go, you know what? I'm grateful for that because I love where I'm at today. I love where I'm at today. And I wouldn't be there if I didn't have the bricks that came to me along the way.
Wow, that's really amazing. I'm going to tell you something that not many people know. My daughter had a similar issue when she got married. They wanted to have children like right away, and they went through a whole bunch of stuff, medical and the like, and ultimately they had a child, which was a huge celebration in my family. And when they were thinking about having another one, she was really, really regretting trying to go through the whole IVF and, all the treatments and everything else. And then, all of a sudden she was pregnant. And it
Mm,
was like, no, it's impossible. The doctors already told us it's impossible. It's not going to happen. But you know what? At the end of the day, God had other ideas,
yep.
and today she has 3 children. And what was interesting is, I'll give you one other point before I go on to the next question. My wife and I, we today have 5 children. After our 4th one was born, the doctors told my wife she would not be able to have any more children. And we were good because I had 2 girls, 2 boys. It was life was good. And I said,
Yeah.
honey, it's fine. We're great. 8.5 years later, which was 2 years after 9/11, my son Yoni was born.
Mm,
Totally shy. It was like, wait a minute, that's impossible. They told us impossible. Well, you know what? God had other ideas.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever, at a point in time in your life, fall so low, all right, that you said to yourself, you know what? I quit. I'm giving up on my dream. I can't do this anymore. I quit. And if you did get to that level at some point, how did you deal with it? And how did you make that comeback?
Yeah. You're asking deep introspective questions, having me go to places I don't normally go. I'll say this, never for long, but I did have a time during that process where there was treatments going on for both my wife and for I. And there's at one point I was on this medication that just really took me in a whole different place. I was on this medication that I'd never really experienced depression. I mean, I've had bad days, but I'd never
Right.
experienced like a clinical,
Clinical depression.
never experienced that before. And it's brought me so much empathy today to where I see that like, well, there was a real difference in terms of chemically inside of my body. I felt drastically different, but I was on this medication and, it got really dark. It got really, really dark. And I finally, my wife told me to stop taking it when I admitted to her that, I had been having suicidal thoughts during
Oh
this
my
time.
God.
And I
Wow.
look back on it now and I know that it was the medication what happened, but what ended up happening, this was over a period of months. And what happened during that time is even when I came off the medication, now I had set new neural pathways in my mind, in my brain that were focusing on different things than I'd ever focused on. And it probably took me a year to really come back from that. And there were periods of time like, and I was a professional speaker at the time. And there were days where I was going through the motions on stage. There were days where I just went, okay, I'm going to follow the script. I'm going to follow the script, something, I've done this hundreds of times. So
Right.
there you go. I can do it. I can turn it on. The lights go on. I can turn it on. But I can remember a time, and this is when I was on this medication. I remember I was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I was at a high school in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I just did an assembly there, and 700 high school students or whatever it was, a full auditorium. And I remember literally having a standing ovation, cheers, standing ovation,
Right.
chanting my name, taking pictures with, a couple hundred kids, that kind of thing. And then going back to my car and just crying.
Oh
And
God.
it was something that I couldn't understand what was going on. And like I said, now I know it was this medication and it was that kind of thing, but it took me like a year to come back from this. And it was so, it didn't fit with my identity. Like that, like being in that place was not who I saw myself was as. And so not only was I going through it, but then I had guilt and shame around it because I felt like I shouldn't be there and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, over that year, how did I come back from it? It was when I made a decision to take 100% responsibility for my situation. And it was that moment when I said, you know what? Even if we hadn't had my son yet, this is in the first time this is when we're in the experimental stage of trying everything you could possibly imagine. And we I basically said, you know what? I have to get to the point to where I am going to choose to be happy no matter what my situation is. It doesn't matter what I'm given in this life. I'm going to choose to be happy no matter what my situation is. Really focus. This is when this whole principle of focus on the good became a part of my life. I have this sign here behind me and talk about it all the time because that's what got me out of that pit. That's what got me out of that was every day saying, what's the good news today? What can I focus on today? What can I be grateful for today? And over the process of a year of very focused internal work, I came out far better on the other end than I was before.
Wow. Wow. You have no idea. I'm telling you this right up front. You have no idea how this is going to affect so many people. All right. Because I know in my audience, there are people out there, especially after this whole COVID thing, that are going through exactly what you went through. And they are, many of them are at a point in their lives where they're going like, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to chuck it, whatever. And the fact that and it took you a year, a year to come back. All right. But you did it. You came back. All right. That is going to give so much hope to so many people. So I'm so glad that you did share that part of your story. I mean, it's really it's so important, and I know that there are probably just a handful of people that actually know this story of
Yeah.
your life. I'm sure. All
Can I say
right.
one more thing on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
As someone who's listening right now, I'm talking about focusing on the good. And sometimes you might be in a super dark place, and that might seem like almost like too much or too happy or too whatever. Some days my focusing on the good was, you know what? I got a lot of stuff to watch on Netflix. And that really, like, that's where I was at those days. I had to let go of the guilt and shame about feeling that way before I could actually get through it.
Wow.
And before that time, I wasn't like against this. I didn't have any antagonistic views on this, but I did not understand that some people truly have chemical imbalances that just bring this about. And I saw in a very real way. So let go of the guilt and shame for you feeling that way and take care of yourself one day at a time. And that focusing on the good might be something tiny. It might be, I could watch this movie that I really like. It could be, I can go on a walk today. It could be the sun is shining today. It doesn't need to be these giant things. Notice it took a year for me to get out of that, not 3 weeks.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. In my own life experience after 9/11, um, I tell people, obviously 9/11 changed me. But I always tell people it wasn't an overnight change. I didn't wake up on Wednesday morning going like, oh man, I'm going to be a new person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be I'm going to climb on a mountain and be a monk, or I'm going to become a rabbi. I'm going to be spiritual. None of that happened. I was the same guy on Wednesday that I was on Tuesday, except that I lost like 658 friends and coworkers. Which was really, really difficult. But what happened was, as I started to tell my story bit by bit, it started to sink in exactly the magnitude of what I had gone through. And it took me about 8 months, all right, for my whole change to happen. So you telling me that it took you a year, I get it. I understand that. And you know what? If it would have taken you 3 days, it probably wouldn't have lasted. But the fact
Yeah.
that it took you a year, that's why it lasted. And that's why you have become the person who you are. All right. Can I ask you a personal question?
Well, it hasn't stopped you. It hasn't stopped you yet. So you
Yeah,
might
I
as well keep
guess.
going.
Yeah, there you go. Are you a man of faith?
Very
Like,
much so.
do you believe in
Yeah,
God?
very much.
That's what I thought. Okay. Because you know what? At the end of the day, as much as we think we're in control, you and I both know we're not in control. All right.
Yeah.
We have to do the things that we need to do. But at the end of the day, God is the one who's running the world and he's in control. But I don't know about you, but it's that my belief and my faith has certainly helped me overcome a lot of different things. And,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you share those feelings as well.
Yes. When I think that also it's natural to doubt, though. It's natural to doubt, especially in those times. And when we're in those times, I think also I'm a huge proponent. I said it earlier, but letting go of guilt and shame for feeling the way that you feel. And sometimes even doubt, you talk about the bricks, you could talk about any of this kind of stuff. Um, it's this concept that I've been hearing about recently, and that is the idea that doubt can be a crucible. It's a crucible of doubt that can make us stronger, that can form us into something new. And that sometimes doubt or sometimes depression or sometimes these down times, sometimes these bricks that come into our life, those are not there to hold us back. Those are gifts that are given to us to help us grow. Now, many people see them and then they hit that wall and they retreat. But if you're willing to push through, on the other side, you get to be a better person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. God, you took the words right out of my mouth. I got to be honest. I knew there was a reason why I liked you. Okay. So before we go, all right, is there anything else that you'd like to share with my audience? Any words of wisdom? Um, a good word. I would tell you this from my standpoint, a lot of times when if I'm in that dark place or whatever, you know what I say to myself? Every day above ground's a good day.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you put that into perspective, because let's be honest, how many people did not survive COVID? All right. And
Yeah.
you've
How
got to
many people
thank,
did not survive 9/11 like you did?
all right, that's why you've got to thank God for all these things. So do you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I'm a very visual person. I'm a very visual person. I like to look at goals, or in my intro, you talked about Mountaintop Motivation Podcast. At the moment we're recording this, the first episode comes out next week. So very excited about that. But when I look at reaching a goal like we're going on a hike, like we're going up a trail. And the mountaintop is where we want to go. Is where we want to go. But as you're going up that trail, think about any time you're on any kind of hike. Most people have been on a hike at some point in their life. Sometimes it feels like, how many more steps am I gonna have to take on this dang thing? And it might feel like this is taking forever. It might feel like you're half. You think I've gone so far, and then you look up and you see there's still so much further to go. But what I would encourage you to do is to look back and see how far you've come rather than just looking at how far you have to go. If you can just take that one step in front of the other, eventually you get there. Eventually you get there. But the people who don't get there are the people who turn around, go back to the parking lot, and go back home. Those are the people who don't get there. It's not that hard to reach our goals. All it is taking one step in front of the other, in front of the other. It's about having longevity instead of having intensity. And if someone can just do that, one step, one step, one step. If you say, I can't keep going, well, can I take one more step? I can't take
Sure.
that. It's too big of a step. Can I take a tiny step? Can I shuffle? Great. I'm moving forward. And that's all that we need to do.
Wow. Jake, you're an amazing man. I said it before. If people want to learn more about your coaching programs or any other programs that you have, like what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you? Website or email or whatever?
Yeah, the best thing that you can do. I have a free video series. It's a 5-part video series. It's called the Number One Goal Fundamental Video Series. And the Number One Goal system is a whole goal achieving system. And I've put this out absolutely for free. They can get that at yournumberonegoal.com. That's a 5-part video series, workbooks. I mean, it's something honestly I should be charging for, but I want this message out to people. I want people to be able to use the tools that I've put together that can help them. So head over there, get your free, it's not a free copy, it's a free access to the 5-part video series on reaching your number one goal.
Wow, that's great. Jake, thanks so much for sharing your story. Good luck going forward. I wish you all the best. Okay. Health, wealth, and happiness for you, your wife, and little Jacob. Okay. Really. And you've changed a lot of lives. You've changed a lot of lives today in this half hour. You've changed a lot of lives, and I appreciate it. And I know my audience appreciates it. You've been listening to Whispers and Bricks, and I'm your host, Ari Schonbrun. Until next time, listen to the whispers, avoid the bricks, and never, ever give up on your dreams. Bye for now.